Hi guys. So, a few weeks ago, I went through something really difficult. Like, really, really difficult. A friend that I thought I could trust, a friend I had put my whole trust in, actually, turned their back on me. And honestly, if it were anyone else, I would have been hurt, of course, because I care about my friends, but it wouldn't have brought me down quite like this. I'm not gonna get into details here, but I did spend a night in the ER because of all this. And I wanted to talk about it today, not to villainize anyone, not to paint myself as a perfect victim, but because I think there's something real and important in this story. Something about mental health, about how we show up for each other, and about what happens when two people who are both deeply hurt find each other and don't quite know how to hold that without breaking. So let me start by telling you who this person was to me. They were someone very special. Someone I had shared my trauma with, and someone who was, and I know this might sound a little woo-woo to some people, but they were someone spiritually aware. Like they literally, at one point, did some kind of witchy thing where they felt what was going on inside my head. I know how it sounds, but they felt my sadness and my despair, and they felt very sorry for me. So they knew how miserable I was because of my mental health. And so I thought, after experiencing that kind of closeness, I really thought that they would never hurt me the way I'd been hurt before. As it turned out, I was wrong. But I also want to be honest. I went into this friendship with my eyes, let's say, partially closed. Because when I first started getting close to that friend, every single person around me, so my in real life friends, my sister, everybody told me they were a walking red flag, that I shouldn't invest myself in this friendship, and I did not listen. I could see someone who was hurting, and I wanted to help. That's something I do. I make myself useful. I see the wound in people, and I move toward it because I know what it feels like to be wounded and misunderstood, and I don't want anyone to feel like that and to feel alone in that. So I want to be the kindness I wish to see in the world. But I'm learning slowly and painfully that wanting to help someone who is hurting is not the same as that person being safe for you. And sometimes we pursue connection that feel familiar precisely because they mirror dynamics we already know. I'm not saying that is exactly what happened here, but I'm not saying it wasn't either. That's something I'm still sitting with, I guess. Also, I want to add that that friend had very few friends, and looking back with as much compassion as I can, they had a way of being in relationships that was very centered on what they could and couldn't give, rather than on what we were building together. They were always worried about how much they could offer, always framing my needs into too much, and I want to be fair, maybe for them, given their own history and their own limits. maybe what I needed was genuinely too much for them, like a mismatch in capacity, I guess. That can happen. It doesn't automatically mean someone is wrong for needing what they need or wrong for not being able to give it, but how you handle that mismatch, I guess that's where real character shows. Now, here's the thing. I'm gonna be real with you. As you know, I have depression. I've had it for a long time, and I've recently come to understand that I also have complex PTSD. Yay! If you've ever been depressed, you know that feeling like you're the problem is about 90% of what being depressed is about. You feel like you're a burden every minute of the day, like your friends secretly hate you. Like, how could anyone actually like you when you yourself can barely stand who you are? And with that comes the PTSD part of it all, which makes me a people pleaser. It makes me feel like other people's unexpected emotions are a threat to my safety. It makes me walk on eggshells every single day. Makes me scared to say no, scared to take up space, scared that if I'm too much, people will leave me. And they have left multiple times. Friends I trusted who got tired of me without telling me until one day they just went cold. And when I tried to understand what was happening, I got blocked because it was easier to kick me out than to explain they were done with me. So yeah, all that plus how I grew up with my parents and my siblings, I carry all that with me, and I know that it shapes how I show up in relationships and how I see others, whether it's good or bad. What I also know, and what I have to own, is that sometimes I'm triggered. Doesn't happen that often, but it did happen a few days ago, where I get really triggered, backed into a corner, feeling abandoned, and I don't always respond well. That's also part of this wonderful illness. I can become intense. I can push, and I can say things that come from a place of pure panic and pain, and it lands as something much harder to be around. Their message to me mentioned emotional blackmail. I'm not going to pretend that accusation came out of nowhere. I don't think my intention were ever to manipulate. I know that when you're drowning and you reach out and the person pulls their hand away, what comes out of you isn't always fair and clean. Intentions don't erase impact. That's something I believe, and I have to apply it to myself, not just to others. But that said, here's what I also need to talk about, because holding my own accountability doesn't mean erasing what happened, and it doesn't mean I'm the only one at fault here. I had told them about the 2 times friends turned their back on me. I told them because we were sharing our experiences with online friendship, sharing how scary it felt to get attached to people you meet online, how terrified we both were of being hurt again. And it felt like a bonding moment, like we were building something real on honest ground. But a few weeks ago, that night that led me to the ER, that friend reached exactly for that. They did precisely what those previous people had done, but the difference that they knew what my deepest fears were. They knew what had broken me before, since I had shared that with them, And in their response to me, they used all of that. So they used intimate knowledge as ammunition, basically. And that's what sent me to the ER. Not the loss of friendship, because I've lost friends before, but the confirmation that maybe they were right and maybe I am the problem, and it sent me into this wonderful spiraling disaster. Whether that was calculated or whether it was just someone lashing out with the sharpest thing they could find, I genuinely don't know. And I'm not here to assume it was calculated. Maybe they were scared too. Maybe what came out of them in that moment was their own pain, not a deliberate cruelty. I know that in those moments, sometimes what comes out of you isn't always fair and clean, as I said earlier. So I don't know if they deeply meant to harm me, but either way, the impact was the same. It broke me. So I also want to address something they said, because I think it touches on something bigger. They used a lot of therapy language, words like boundaries, self-care, and other things like that. And I want to be careful here because those concepts are real and important. Knowing your limits matters. Protecting your energy matters. I believe that. But there is a version of that language that gets weaponized. That becomes a way of dressing up avoidance as growth, of framing hurtful comments as care, of calling it prioritizing yourself when you actually disappear on someone who is in crisis. It has also become a way of calling it setting boundary when what you're really actually doing is refusing every conversation that makes you uncomfortable. And here's what I believe about relationships, friendships included. You do owe the people you love something. Not everything, not beyond your genuine limits, but you owe them communication, you owe them honesty when you're pulling back, you owe them the decency of not vanishing, because if you truly believe you owe nothing to anyone, then what you're describing is not friendship. It's just two people existing near each other until one of them becomes inconvenient. And if this is your vision of friendship, then I'm sorry to tell you, but you have never experienced friendship. And I was not asking for the world. I was asking for the basic dignity of being treated like my feelings mattered. And I really do know that some needs can feel like a lot when you're already running on empty. But the answer to that is a conversation. Not disappearing, not sending a message that lists everything that is wrong with me. Because that is not communicating, that is just shooting a bullet at someone who's already on the ground. Despite all that, here's what I'm taking from all this. My empathy is not a weakness. My ability to see hurt in people and to want to help them is not a weakness, and I do not want to lose that. But I do need to stop mistaking someone's pain for safety. I need to stop believing that someone who has been hurt like me is going to treat me properly. Because not everyone learns from their past pain. Not everyone is doing the work on themselves. And while I'm talking about that, I also need to keep working on myself. Of course, especially on my complex PTSD, on that part of me that panics, that part which has been used to intensity and believe that it's where it'll find safety, when in reality it should be looking for stillness and consistency. What I'm also taking from this is that I should focus on the friendship I already have, those that have stood the test of time. I should focus on those people who know me, those who saw the red flag coming when I didn't. I should listen to them more and learn not to be so stubborn. Relationships end because of two people's choices and because of two people's patterns. Here it was my patterns as well as theirs and their choice to end this friendship. I still believe that we were meant to be friends, that I could have learned from their coldness and narcissist traits, and they could have learned from my empathy and people-pleasing behavior. Because everything, and I mean really everything, whether it's narcissism, coldness, empathy, boundaries, people-pleasing, everything is good as long as it is balanced. You have to be kind and open enough to make friends, to make lasting friendships, but not to be too open that you let anyone in and end up being stepped over. You have to protect your peace while also letting people in, because going through life alone isn't a viable way to live. So, yeah, I'm telling this story because maybe someone out there will recognize something in this. Maybe they're in a friendship that makes them feel like the problem, like they're always asking for too much. So I just want to take this moment to tell you, you are not too much. You deserve people who stay, and so do I. I'm gonna go and journal some more about this. I don't think they will listen to this because they unfollowed my channel a little while back after I shared things about our friendship on here. They were really pissed about it, which is, I mean, it's my channel. I talk about what I want, and if I feel like sharing how upset something makes me feel, I do. So yeah, I guess it's better if they don't follow. Although it is a little sad to see that person disappear. Anyway, journal about this, and then I'm gonna go fix my skateboard and just leave a little. I recommend you guys do the same. Journaling is important, it's really good therapy. Talk things out, write things out. Of course, if the person you're arguing with doesn't want to do that with you, you can do it on your own. You don't have to wait for them. And on that note, take care. Don't forget to drink water, to eat something, to rest. And I hope you're happy and healthy, and I love you. Bye.